Hello and welcome to today's video. In this video we're going to be focused on automotive thermostats. I just recently took care of an overheating issue on this Honda Civic, which as you can see had an issue with the lower radiator hose leaking coolant all over the place. So I decided to make this video to show you an easy way to diagnose a thermostat, if it's bad or not, explain to you and show you how a thermostat works, and the most common mistakes people make when replacing thermostats. Well, let's get started. Here we got the two most common thermostats that you'll find, a dual poppet design and a single. They both serve the function of helping your vehicle warm up faster by blocking the circulation of coolant throughout the engine until it reaches a certain temperature. But these dual poppet thermostats take it a step further. This lower poppet allows coolant to flow from the hottest part of your engine through a bypass channel, allowing it past the lower poppet, pushing through this weaker spring. But when this thermostat opens, it will also block off the bypass to prevent the hottest coolant from mixing directly with the colder coolant that's coming in to prevent damage to the engine block. So now that we know what it does, why do we actually need these thermostats? Well, when you first start your vehicle, it will run rich and the RPMs will be a little higher. So that's where this thermostat comes in. It helps your engine warm up faster by not circulating coolant through your radiator. So the faster your engine warms up, the faster you'll go from running rich to stoic, or in other words, a perfect fuel mixture. Also reducing emissions and of course preventing premature wear to your engine. The whole key to this thermostat working properly is this cylinder in the middle. It's a cylinder filled with wax that begins to melt at the temperature which the thermostat is manufactured to. Like this one for example, on the bottom you can see that this one says 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This indicates the temperature that this thermostat will begin to open, so at that temperature the wax begins to melt, and as the wax becomes liquid, it also expands, pushing the piston out of the cylinder, opening the valve in the process. Well, let's see this thermostat in action, so you can get a better idea of how it works. So first I boil some water, which water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I pour it into a glass container that's safe for that temperature. Once the water's in, I also put the thermostat in, closing it all up to retain the heat, otherwise the water will cool down fast and probably not fully open the thermostat. Now to speed this up a little, and as you can see the valve begins to slowly open up as the wax inside melts, pushing the piston up, in turn opening the valve. The thing about these thermostats, they don't fully open till they reach a temperature of about 15 degrees higher than what's indicated. So this one wouldn't fully open till it reaches about 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, let's go ahead and get this cover off so we can get a better look. Here we can get a good look at the gap where the coolant would be passing through when this valve opens. Ouch, this thing is definitely hot though. Okay, cut. Now for the single poppet thermostat. This one has a temperature rating of 160 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's when it should start opening. And it should fully open at about 175 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. On this one we could notice that it definitely opened up more, probably because on this one we were actually able to get it to its max opening temperature. Now for the most common mistake I've come across when people replace their thermostats, and it has to do with this little jiggle pin or check valve as they're called. The purpose of this is to allow trapped air to be removed out of the system, but the most common mistake I see is this being placed where it's facing down. The problem with this is the air up here above the thermostat gets stuck there and has nowhere to go. But when it's installed properly like this, facing up, this little valve allows the air over the coolant to bleed out and be removed from the system as you fill it. Not all thermostats have the same design though. Some may have a bleed notch where the valve opens or a little pinhole, but it will have some way to bleed the air out. So finally, now that we understand how it works, let's see how this helps us diagnose problems with the thermostat. The first thing we always do is make sure to check the coolant level, making sure that it's topped up. Then we continue to this next test, starting off with a cold engine. Our thermostat will be located just behind this water outlet, connected to this lower radiator hose. And from here on, we're going to use both the upper and the lower radiator hoses to tell us how good the thermostat is functioning. But since you're not going to be able to feel the temperature I feel, I'm going to be using this infrared thermometer to show you guys the temperatures. Before starting though, whenever you're doing these tests, you want to make sure to avoid touching any parts like your exhaust manifold or moving parts, including areas where the fan may begin rotating. The first thing we'll want to verify is that the thermostat is closed and closes properly. And to do this, we turn on the vehicle, and as the engine warms up, this upper radiator hose will begin to get warm because the coolant still circulates from the engine into the radiator. So our first test will be to compare the temperature of the hoses. By now this upper one should be getting warmer while the lower one stays cool, since the coolant is blocked off from going back into the engine here at the bottom. If you notice that they're both warm before reaching normal operating temperature, then you most likely have a thermostat that's stuck open or missing, because some people do remove them. I guess they think it'll keep it from overheating. Yes, it may allow direct circulation, but with that comes taking much longer to warm up the vehicle, so you waste more gas and all the other stuff I mentioned earlier. Anyways, by now, the engine should be pretty warm, and by the feel of the lower hose, it feels like the thermostat may be starting to open. And yes, based on the reading, the lower hose is starting to circulate the warm coolant. Once the thermostat is fully open, both the hoses will get really warm, although the lower one should be slightly lower temperature, since that's the coolant that circulated through the radiator, so the airflow does cool it down. And you will notice that the temperature of the hoses are substantially cooler than the actual temperature here at the aluminum parts of the engine. So don't expect the readings on the rubber to get as high as the readings that you'll get on the actual block. Well, in conclusion, if you notice that both of the hoses are hot, as they are here, then the coolant is circulating as it should, the thermostat is open and working properly. Although whenever you're checking it, just verify that the engine reaches the temperature that the thermostat opens before coming to the conclusion that the thermostat is bad. But if still your lower hose doesn't get warm, then you may have a thermostat that is stuck closed, preventing coolant from circulating as it should. Well, I hope this video was helpful and informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel, and please subscribe if you haven't done so.